Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from Krispykre and it says, "Am I the arsehole here for being uncomfortable with my fiancé, female 21, going on a trip with her 29 male best friend? My fiancée, female 21, who I'm marrying in 3 months, is currently on a trip with her best friend, male 29, and I'm stuck alone at home, just thinking non-stop about it. To preface, we've been in a bit of a rough patch over the holidays. During Thanksgiving, I looked over my fiancée's shoulder to see she was texting her guy best friend about our sex life. When I brought it up, it was in a half-joking manner, but it got across I was uncomfortable with it. She shut down on me. I felt pretty abandoned in that moment, and she instantly went to that guy best friend to talk about it, as I once saw her texting from over her shoulder. Starting off with, apparently OP is pissed about us talking about sex. About 20 minutes of laying in bed not talking to each other. We talked it over and she said she wouldn't do it again, now that she knew I was uncomfortable with it. In September, she had discussed going on a trip to Vegas as a couple's trip with her, me, her guy best friend, and his girlfriend, female 28. I was fine with this and was excited to go. I took the appropriate days off work and was looking forward to it. Later on, she said that the plane tickets were up more than she could afford. She works in aviation, so she's more knowledgeable than me about this kind of stuff, and that the trip would just be her and her guy friend. This was before the incident on Thanksgiving, so I saw no issue. Fast forward to this past week, I told her that just her and him going on the trip would make me uncomfortable. She said she wouldn't go if I was uncomfortable with it, but they had gone in a room with 2 separate beds and had set ground rules. I didn't want to be controlling, so I said they should still go on the trip because I didn't want my insecurity to ruin their good time. Now, they just got there today. The reality of the situation set in for me. I told my family about it because they could tell I was upset, and they all said they wouldn't be comfortable if they were in my situation. I knew that them going on the trip was partially my doing, given I gave the okay. I just feel like telling her that she can't do it again when she gets back, because I know that if the shoe was on the other foot and I went on a trip alone with a female, she would be super upset. Not sure what to do, as I'm considering postponing the wedding because of this. My family told me to make a Reddit post to get some insight, so here I am. Thanks for reading. Wait, what says not the arsehole? You should not be marrying anyone who would plan a couple's trip, then cut out the SOs so that they can go alone together to Vegas. A woman who loved her fiancé would not do that. She has an inappropriate relationship with this guy. She has no business talking to him about your sex life. She sounds immature and definitely not ready for marriage. OP says we had a couples counseling appointment on Thursday, and I said I couldn't trust her, and I've been making myself responsible for her feelings. I won't tolerate guilt tripping or other manipulative tactics for my partner to get what they want. We're taking a 3-month break, and if we do get back together, we'll be starting from scratch. I'm taking this time to reflect upon what I value in a partner, as well as taking the time to get back in touch with who I am. Thanks for all the support and insight. Really helped me through this difficult time." Antique History says, "Are you okay?" OP responded saying, "I'm doing a lot better. Still definitely in the grieving process, but I also feel like I've been grieving this relationship for a long time. I've come to realize, even if they didn't physically cheat, which I highly doubt, at bare minimum, I was emotionally cheated on. Your partner should be your person, and you should be comfortable to share anything with them. I wasn't because I knew she had no concept of boundaries and would blab about our relationship to her friends. One of them being the guy she went on the trip with. It's not that this friend was a guy that upsets me, but the fact that she felt like she could have intimate details of our relationship. She considered cutting them off during Thanksgiving because of her assumptions that they blocked her, because she was spamming them with texts and they wouldn't respond. All in all, I'm trying to pick up the pieces and learn to live for myself again, as well as trying to shed myself of people-pleasing survival tactics. Loneliness sucks, but it's way better than staying in a relationship out of fear of being alone, especially if you're being mistreated." Yeah, and there was a lot of odd stuff in this one. It just felt like it was a pattern of inappropriate boundaries and emotional infidelity at the same time. Like, she discusses their sex life with an older male. You know, there is a bit of a gap there. When confronted, she immediately texts that friend to complain about OP. The trip itself It was a couple's trip that conveniently became just her and this friend. I really want to know what his girlfriend thought about that at the same time as well. And she just seems more emotionally attached to this friend than her fiance. And I think OP's just come to realize that, this isn't the one. But OP comes in with an update and says, I've had a lot of comments asking for an update in the replies of my last post. And it's been long enough to where I feel my grieving process is essentially over. That and something happened recently that opened my eyes. I'd like to start off by saying I appreciate every comment I got on the last post. I really appreciate the insight, and it helped me realize that I was in a toxic relationship. I didn't feel like I could tell her my real feelings out of fear it would upset her. When I would upset her, she would often melt down completely and throw a pity party. These guilt trips would influence me to do things for her to make her happy. I definitely had a role in that, and it goes back to how I was treated as a child, and how I developed people-pleasing behavior as a coping mechanism. There was a lot in that relationship that I shouldn't have been putting up with in the first place. She would get weird if I had any female friends, or even if I was just hanging out with my best friend and his girlfriend, which is ironic given the circumstances. Called projecting. Looking back, there were very obvious signs she didn't care about me anymore. She would constantly show me TikToks as opposed to actually spending quality time with me. And when she wasn't showing me TikToks, she was texting the other guy while in bed with me. She texted and called me a day before my birthday and told me amongst other things that we shouldn't get back together. We weren't going to anyways, and that the guy she went on the trip with and his girlfriend had broken up. I didn't really care about all this, and it just made me angry. I was upset that even after a month of not speaking, she had the audacity to not consider my feelings as a priority whatsoever. She never even apologized once. I made my feelings known to her. She of course got defensive, saying she didn't like my passive aggression, and that our autism made her not understand social cues. All in all, this confirmed to me that I had made the right decision. She had asked me to take the original post down, as I had told her about its existence in a moment of anger. The post is still up. I would like to say to anyone in a toxic relationship, you're worth more than what they are giving you. You're worth more than the bare minimum consideration. You deserve to surround yourself with people that make you happy and encourage you to grow as a person, not someone that drains your energy and only seems to take. You aren't responsible for how anyone feels. I love you all, and I'm ready to start this new chapter of my life. Commenter says I understand autism and not understanding social cues. She's straight up manipulating or attempting to manipulate to get what she wants. I bet that trip with the guy friend was to break everyone up to get her and him together. Good riddance to her. OP says, I really tried to be understanding and patient with her. Just seemed like it was used more as an excuse. No Hornet says her autism. Her what? Lol, her what? I cannot even. The lie is so palpable you can almost spit it from across the electronic screen. Thank God you are free. Hope you find someone who completes you, makes you whole, and may you return the same vibe to them. Together, may you and whomever you are with grow like great trees in the journey of life, for joy, delight, and prosperity too. But remember to not rush romance. You're looking for your best friend, your life partner. That comes perfectly when you are ready. So work on you until then. Opie says I am for sure working on myself now. The more time has gone on, the more I think of instances where she emotionally manipulated me into things I wasn't comfortable with. Hell, I was on the fence about proposing, but she thought in her head that we would get engaged after 2 years together, even though she knew I wasn't ready. I went into debt for this woman, and she didn't respect me enough to stay loyal. I appreciate the kind words, and I wish nothing but the best for you. And let's face it, it was red flags all over the place, from the ticket suddenly being too expensive so OP can't go. There seemed to be no discussion of OP paying for his ticket to go himself or anything along those lines. Just note, oh well, our partners can't go, so we'll just go together. Yeah, come on now. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from the Petty Revenge subreddit from TitansFronRow and says, I'll do what I want in my own yard. Okay, I'll make it impossible to enjoy your air. Last spring, my old neighbor, who was a saint, sold her house and moved away. The people that moved in were awful. The guy, who we'll call Pete, owns some sort of new black Mustang that sounds like it has no muffler, and he revs it up and down the subdivision streets in the evenings literally 5 days a week, when a lot of people, myself included, sit on the back porch and watch TV during the summer. It is relentless. This guy also drives up and down the state highway that is on the other side of my house doing the same thing, but louder, because it's a 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. You can hear it for miles, and he has friends over regularly in the backyard, and they sit there on the weekends and some weeknights, revving up the car. It truly is so loud that you cannot do anything but wait for him to be done. There was a big Facebook conversation in our HOA group, HOA, and a bunch of neighbors politely asked him not to do this. Pete's exact response? I pay a lot of money for this house. I'll do what I want in my own yard. And the streets are public. Well, I didn't like that, so here's what I did next, with a little context. Our subdivision has about 150 houses on about 300 acres. It's big. Most of the properties in the subdivision are between 1 to 4 acres in size. I have a 3-acre corner. Due to an agreed upon land split and sale 10 years ago between the HOA, all neighbors within the vicinity and the former owners, my next door neighbor's house is on the smallest piece of property in the subdivision at 0.45 acres. I've attached a stunning artistic representation here. Note the green borders. Those are all 10 feet privacy fences that are white vinyl, and note the little pentagon shape that comes in handy later. The only side of Pete's house not bordered by someone else's privacy fence is the side that my house is on. Then OP shared an image showing basically a map of their area that they done, and OP continues. Well, I know from 15 years of living here that anytime I have a fire on the side of the yard next to Pete's, the smoke is guaranteed to travel in the direction of Pete's house. I know this because I couldn't ever have a fire when my old neighbor was outside, as it would literally fill her backyard with smoke if ever the wood had even a hint of moisture in it. So I moved my fire pit about a dozen years ago to the other side of the house and towards the road so that I could be a good neighbor. And you know, Pete letting me know that he wouldn't quit making noise reminded me that I just loved having my fire pit right in the middle of my backyard. That's where the little pentagon is in the diagram above. It took me a single weekend to dig up the pavers and blocks, move them back to my preferred spot and get myself a fire going in my new fire pit. I just needed to wait until Pete had people over. I made sure the inaugural fire was a good one. Pete had friends over. It was a nice day, and so I started the fire. Got it just about started, and then I added all the wettest, grossest wood I could. And about 10 minutes later, Pete and all of his friends were visibly upset by the stench, so they all went in. They came back out a little later and I added more wet, nasty wood. They went in again. I kept that up the entire day, and then I added a bunch of grass clippings to keep it going overnight. The next day, still smoldering, still smelling awful. I put out a Facebook post on the HOA website that let people know I'd be continuing to utilize my fire pit as often as possible, so they could bring me their lawn scraps. I had about 20 people respond in a few hours saying their clippings were all mine. I kept that fire going. My dogs are good alarms and they rush outside anytime anybody is in Pete's backyard. So I would hear the dog scramble, go out and add more clippings. After about 3 weeks, Pete and his wife came out and very kindly asked me what was going on with the fire pit. She very politely informed me that her hair would smell like a campfire if she went into her backyard for any amount of time, and they could smell it coming into their house through their ductwork. He said I was making it hard for him to enjoy his backyard with his friends. They asked me if I could ease back with the fire because I probably didn't know that it was impacting so much of their home life. I looked at him and his wife and I said that it was clear that sometimes we didn't recognize on how big of an effect something could have on our neighbors until they told us about it. But then I said, as objectively as possible, that I normally live by the same, I'll do what I want in my yard thought process as Pete does. I have a right to enjoy my yard. I looked Pete dead in the eyes and said, and I know you support that because of how the conversation concluded about your car, right, Pete? He looked at me like I scratched his favorite CD. He knew what I was doing, and his wife looked at him and it dawned on her. She said she gets it, and we won't hear the Mustang anymore. I said thanks. I took a gamble and put the fire out right after that. It was the right call. I haven't talked to them much since. I'm not too concerned about that because I haven't heard the Mustang since either. All in all, a good little case of petty revenge. Absolutely well played. I like that all the neighbors were in on it as well. I bet they were loving it. And I think the wife's reaction said it all. I can just picture that scene of her looking at Pete and going, "Oh, you dickhead." But I think that one was absolutely well handled. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's have another story. Now, our next story is from the Am I the Arsehole subreddit. No update as yet, but it's one of those ones that happens in daily life that we don't usually see an update to. I like to read because, daily shenanigans. Quizzicalnonsense says, am I the arsehole for kicking a pregnant woman out of her seat? Okay, so this happened a few hours ago and I've only just calmed down because I hate conflict. Because I was doing a long travel day, 5-ish hours, so I booked my train in advance to ensure that I had a reserved seat. When I get on the train, a woman is in my seat, so I politely inform her that I think that's my seat, show her my ticket and ask her to move. She checks her ticket and just says, well, I must have sat in the wrong seat, and puts her head down. I say that it's my seat and could I please sit in it? At this point, her partner sitting opposite her starts speaking at me in what I perceive to be an aggressive tone. He suggests I find another seat, which there are none because it's busy. And I say, but I booked that seat and there are no other available seats in the carriage. He then raises his voice and says, well, someone else is in our seats and that his missus is pregnant. I say I understand that and I have a heart defect, which I do, and said everyone has their own medical issues and reasons standing for long periods of time might be difficult. And here I could be the arsehole. I ask him not to speak to me in an aggressive tone and that I will make a complaint. He then starts swearing at me and I ask him to stop. Eventually the woman gets up and allows me to sit there and he continues to berate me, saying he hopes that I feel good for myself and that I'm quiet now I have my seat. When really I just stopped engaging as I felt that there was no point. One of the men who was sat beside him offers that him and his partner sit in the seats opposite me. It's a table seat, at which point he sits his partner down and then laughs at me and points in my face. Eventually when the ticket inspector comes around, they're asked to move to their assigned seats, and she asks if I'm okay, as another passenger had made a complaint on my behalf. Even so, was I the arsehole? Should I have just left them alone as she was pregnant? And did I in any way escalate the situation? Edit, as I don't know how I'll be able to respond to all the comments. Thank you sincerely to everyone that has engaged with this post. I've learned a lot about myself and my ability to let anxiety and overthinking get in the way of trusting my decisions. I honestly came into writing this thinking that I escalated the situation, so to have people affirm that it's just standing my ground and that it is alright has been really gratifying. It has taught me, however, I have a way to go with standing up for myself and not being such a people pleaser. If I don't get to respond, just know I appreciate your engagement with my post nonetheless. This has really helped to calm me and give me insight after an incredibly stressful situation. There was a very simple solution for this guy: get up off his ass and let his wife sit in that seat. But no, of course, entitlement comes to the front. And I've seen this entitlement quite a lot, like from all sorts of people as well. Some of you might know I'm a Wolves supporter. Don't hate me. But and occasionally go to Wolves to watch them, of course. And it's an hour and a half maybe from Oxfordshire. And so the majority of people going that way will book their seat because they don't want to stand for that whole time. And it's usually a very busy train anyway. So you get on and you can guarantee that there'll be someone sat in your seat. And the amount of arguments you see people getting into because of it, people refusing to move, it's just wild. The absolute entitlement of it all. It's just absolutely wild. I know what you mean about questioning yourself and escalating the situation and learning to stand your ground. I think many people are still doing that. I'm doing that myself, even though I've personally read hundreds, thousands of stories about that kind of thing. My brain still plays that game of, was I right to do so? Did I escalate that situation? Was it worth escalating that situation? Was there a better way to deal with it? Etc, etc. We're all human at the end of the day. We're all learning as we go. But the majority of people were on OP's side on this one, asking why the husband didn't get up in the first place and, that this is bully behavior, you paid for your seat and that's how the system works, etc, etc. Some people saying that you should have called for assistance pretty much straight away. This sounds kind of like a British post from what I read from the term Mrs. and stuff like that. And a couple of other little hints, and let me tell you, it's not that easy to get assistance on our trains. You barely see any assistance people there or ticket inspectors. Well, I don't anyway when I'm on those trains. So it makes the situation that bit more difficult. Not saying that for all trains, of course, but the ones that I've been on seems to be that way. But what about you guys? Have you ever found yourself in a similar position? You reserved a seat, turned up, someone else is in it. Did it escalate? Didn't it? How did you deal with it? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart for getting involved in today's stories. I don't know why. I just had a little flashback of like someone might be listening to this while on a train, looking at someone sitting in their seat. I don't know why that popped into my head, but thank you for being here today, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay, I know that today'll be a good day.